web-based system. It is an end-to-end solution. Now, as a web-based system, you can access LendingQB wherever you happen to be, provided that you have an Internet Explorer connection as your web browser. It is only compatible with Internet Explorer at this point in time. If you are working on a Mac, it will work just fine with Parallels, but it does need to be Internet Explorer. It's also end-to-end. So it's really important that you keep this in mind, because what you do on day one will have an effect on this loan funding, because everybody is going to be using this same system for looking up information and for progressing the loan through all statuses, from processing to underwriting and so on. Before we actually start looking at a loan file, there's a couple of things I want you to learn here about the navigating. Now, I am in as an administrator, so I have a few more rights than you will, and you'll see that difference right here on this left navigation panel. You won't have quite as many of these areas, but trust me, you will have what you need in order to do your job. If you don't have your logins now, you very well may have them not long after this call has concluded. Let's see, Joe's emailing me again, and I have already sent him that information. Okay. One of the things that's really unique to LendingQB is the pipeline management. It's simply a report that you've created inside the system and you've set to be your pipeline view. And, you know, everybody, there's a lot of different things and different ways that you would look at your pipeline. You may want to have a pipeline exclusively for your leads, people that haven't yet committed to you, and another pipeline view that is exclusively for loans that are moving forward, people that have committed and they've moved toward processing and underwriting and so on. You may also want to have another pipeline view to help you manage your locked loans, or identifying when appraisals were ordered and or received. So these pipeline views here in the center of the screen, I want to show you how you can get those set. And I think Joe is calling in right now, so we may take a break and let him just give you a little welcome kickoff. And there he is. Joe, is that you? Joe, it looks like you're in on a microphone rather than dialing in, and we are not able to hear you at this point in time.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Getting a lot of feedback, but we can hear you.
Okay. I think I finally made it.
Yeah, welcome, welcome. Did you want to, we were just kind of going over a few little basics as we were waiting for you. Did you want to go ahead and give a kickoff, or shall I go ahead and continue?
No, I was just letting everyone know Janice is in a closing right now, so she just wanted to say to everybody hello, and sorry she couldn't make it.
Okay, awesome. All right. Well, let's go ahead and take a look here at how do you set those pipeline views that I was referring to. How do you get all of those different pipeline views that I was mentioning? Each one of you will have your first, and it'll simply say your pipeline, just as this one does right here. Now, I can come over here to where it says now showing, and it's defaulted to the simple pipeline. When I click on change, it will bring up a new window, which will give me a listing of all of my options. So let's say that this first pipeline tab, I want this to be more or less of my active loans. So I'm going to change the name of this tab, and I'm just going to call it active. You can call it whatever you want. It's unique to your login. So this is unique to you. I'm choosing to call it active. And I'm going to come through and I'm going to find a pipeline view that will probably work. Now, there are a number of them. You have an Arnell pipeline. You have some up here that's for Jonathan and Kurt. Maybe those are loan officers. And you might try their pipeline view out to see if they work for you. Maybe they don't. Austin here's got another one. I'm going to choose Austin. So I click on choose. And that's going to change my pipeline. Now, it's not working for me. I can always choose to send it back to whatever will work for me in order to view my pipeline. So it might need some trial and error, and if you don't find one that works for you, then you can always ask your manager if one can be created for you. You just need to tell them what fields need to be there and what information you want to see. Now, if I want to, remember I told you there was another pipeline view, maybe perhaps you want for monitoring leads. So the plus sign comes into play at that point. I hit plus, and I start that process essentially all over again. This one's going to be my leads. What is the name of that other tab? I'm calling this one leads. I saw a leads pipeline here, so pipeline your leads, and I'm going to choose that, and that will be that pipeline view. And there are a few leads that I have in the system. Now, I can take these and move them around. Do I want my leads first, my active loans first? How do I want those to show here? So that throughout the day, all I do is go between one tab and the next, and that will allow me to manage my pipeline. Now, I gave you a few examples of what those pipeline views can be. You can choose many, many more. I mean, there's really no limit to what you can set. The other thing that I want to mention here about these pipeline views, your active pipeline is going to have many different statuses, from loans that are in processing, they've been submitted to underwriting, and so on. So my suggestion to you would be ask that they be grouped. Rather than seeing all of my statuses this way, I would prefer each status to be grouped together so that I saw them in individual sections. But again, it's entirely up to you. Now, finding loans inside the system. There are several ways that you can find loans. One of them is, of course, your pipeline view. And you could even resort your pipeline. Any one of these headers, these blue underlined headers, are sortable. So if you wanted to resort by the lock expiration date, you could. If you wanted to resort by the borrower's last name in an ascending or descending alphabetical order, you could do that as well. So your pipeline view is a way of finding loans. There's also this Find Loan link over here, and I want you to remember that link. We will come back to it. Over here on the far right is the search. I like searching by the last name, and I can do that as a partial search. I'm putting in the first three letters of the borrower's last name and then the asterisk. The asterisk tells the system that that's a partial. And then click on Go, and here are all my matches. I can do a partial by loan number as well. Maybe all I know is the last 3 or 4 digits. I can do that. Now remember that Find Loan feature that was on the upper left corner? That would have brought us to this page as well. And here I could be looking for not maybe a specific loan, but maybe a group of loans. I want to know all the loans that are in my pipeline that are approved, that are with a particular processor maybe. Pick user, select the processor. So I want to have every approved loan in my pipeline with Christian, and I hit Find using search parameters. I'm going to undoubtedly get nothing, but you can do any type of cumulative search in that manner. When you're done finding the loans that you're looking for or done with your search, and you want to go just right back to your main pipeline view, come up here to the top, click on Pipeline. It takes you right back to where we started. Now, I have a loan here. Excuse me, my allergies are getting the best of me at the moment. I have a loan here that I've prepared, and I'm going to use that as an example. But before I do, I want to show you a couple of other pricer, just as the name implies, provide to me, what are your rates today? And they don't want to give you anything. They don't want to give you any personal information. They don't want to give you anything. So you can use this, just check the boxes or uncheck the boxes to what is applicable to what they're asking for. Maybe they're interested in 15 or a 30-year fixed loan, conventional. And then you hit price. This takes the place of looking at rate sheets. So instead of putting various rate sheets in front of you to find the best par rate and then make sure that you've hit all your pricing adjustments, use your quick pricer. Here are my results. In the results, it gives me the interest rates, the pricing I can quote, the calculated P&I, the investor's name, and pricing adjustments, if any. When I click on the adjustments, it brings up the detailed pricing adjustments. Just keep in mind when there are pricing adjustments, these have been taken into account with the pricing shown already. Don't give yourself a double incentive or hit yourself more than once for the same pricing adjustment. Now, also here at the top, these are my eligible products. I can also click here and take a look at the ineligible products and why. Why are they ineligible? Maybe it was a matter of erroneous data entry, in which case I can simply go back and correct my data entry and then try again. Also, here you're noticing, I'm sure, that some of the rates are in red, some are in black font. Red is expired rates, black is current rates. Now, it looks like it's possible that either SunWest has not posted rates for the day, or they're going through a price change. You know, depending on the time of day, that can pretty much tell you the story. If it's middle of the day, wait for about 5 minutes, rerun pricing, and they should be updated in the system at that time. Just a quick way of getting pricing to give to your borrowers. Now, I do want to caution you, make sure that you're reading every one of these lines. Property use, property type in particular. You know, if this had been a co-op, not only would I have received vastly different pricing, but not every investor will do co-ops. So make sure that you are looking at and using these drop downs to select what is appropriate. So that is your quick pricer. Click right at here on the X and close that right down. So you've got that right here. Now, when a client first comes to you, you know, there's always that, not always, but very often, the borrower may not have committed to you. Let's use that quick pricer client as an example. You know, they were interested, but it needed further development. And maybe they were willing to give you a name and a phone number. Let's make a record of it. Was it a purchase? Was it a refi? Click whichever purchase lead or refinance lead that is appropriate. Now that opens that lead page on another window. Let me slide that over. It's going to take a second here to populate. And once it does, I can begin entering as little information as I'm given or as much information as they're willing to give me. I already know what the purchase price was. I used that for the quick pricer. I know what they were going to put down as far as a down payment. I gave them a quote on what they were interested in. So I can just put that information in. I know it was a single family, so I'll put in it was detached. And then I can come down to where it says borrower info, save my information there. And now put in the name that they gave me. Maybe that phone number that they gave me. That's enough for me to save that lead. So now, that lead is now available over here on my leads. There it is, in real time. I even put in the borrower's phone number, so now when I go to follow up on this lead tomorrow or the next day, I don't even need to open the lead. I simply need to call the borrower. If they answer and give me a little bit more information, then I can open the information open the lead. And maybe now they're willing to give me the date of birth, and I enter that, or the number of years in school. So I can start building on that application as I talk to them. If they don't answer the phone, I don't open the lead, and I go on to the next and the next and the next. Now, I'm not going to spend a lot of time over on the lead side, because what you can do on the lead side is really almost identical to what you can do on the loan side, and that's where I want to spend more of our time. But, you can put in an entire 1003 on the lead side. You can run the Price My Loan engine. The Price My Loan engine is a full-blown AUS underwriting engine. The Quick Pricer that we just looked at is a snippet of the power of that Price My Loan engine. Price My Loan sounds like a pricing engine. It is, but it's a true AUS underwriting engine, and we'll talk about that more in a few moments. But again, I can do that on the lead side. I can, as I said, take a full application. I can complete a fees worksheet. I can send out a borrower's authorization, start collecting documents in eDocs. So I can do just about everything I need to do on the lead side. Once I'm ready, or not me, maybe once my borrower is ready, they've committed to you, they've indicated that they want to move forward. At that time, you will want to assign in status. This is where you will convert this lead to a loan. When you click on assign in status, it's going to allow you to convert to a loan file. Click on that button there. Choose the applicable template. And many of these templates are by branch, and some are a little bit more generic. Conforming fixed 30. Whatever is appropriate. Select the appropriate template, create new loan number, and click on convert. That's going to move this file from the lead side to the loan side, and it will be now visible in your active, or whatever you named that primary template. You will have no loss of data. Everything that you did on the lead side will be preserved. If you pulled credit, it will come with you. If you ran the DU, it will come with it. So all of that will be preserved and move over to the loan side. So that is your leads. It's just an area where you're going to keep and open most of your prospective borrowers. It's just a place where you can collect as much information as the borrower is willing to give you, but at the same time, leaving the pipeline, the true pipeline, as true as possible, so that your management team is able to pull reports based on active loans, real loans that will be moving forward, and not a bunch of maybes, which is what a lead can be. As much as we'd love to think that they'd all convert, reality is they don't. So open them as often. Most of the time, your best practice is going to be open everything as a lead. Borrower has committed to you and given you the I want to move forward indication, whatever that verbiage may be, then you'll convert it. Now, that's not to say that you can't open a loan as a loan. You don't have to open as a lead. If you're doing a repeat clientele or some other individual that has given you that, I'm moving forward right here, right now, today, let's go, you can always create a purchase lead or a refinance lead, whichever is appropriate. Again, once you click on that, the system is going to ask you to select that template, and you'll simply select the template that is going to most closely resemble the loan transaction that you are doing. Now we have somebody that just joined us, and you're on a speaker. If I could ask you to please mute your microphone, that would be wonderful. Now, I have a file here that I've prepared. I'm going to walk us through how you're going to enter that data or update that data. And it's this one right here. Now, to open a loan in the system, any loan in the system is always going to be click on loan number and then edit. Those loans will always open up in another window. You can have many loans open at the same time. And right here, if I were to have, let me just open this one as well. If I were to have two loans open at the same time and I wanted to go ahead and go between one and the other, they'd be listed here. So very easy to manage multiple windows when that occurs. And as I mentioned earlier, just as with the leads, loans opens up in a different window as well. So 2 monitors is ideal with LendingQB. If you only have one, if you're working from a laptop, it's not imperative. It just makes life a little bit easier. All right. Now, the first time that you log into LendingQB, all of these folders on this left navigation panel, they're going to be open. My suggestion to you is to close most of them up. I would leave the loan info, subject borrower, and the borrower info folder open, but close all the others and then come down to the bottom here and hit Save Menu Layout. Once you do that, that's going to save that menu layout, and the next time that you open a loan file and every loan file thereafter, you will come to this loan info page right here that we're on, and those 3 folders will be open. Now, I suggest these 3 folders, and here's why. There are actually 2 ways to enter data onto the system, into the system. These 3 folders comprise a 1003. You do have the 1003 version down here, but these are isolated snippets and really will enable you to more accurately autofill all of the 1003 data. You certainly are welcome to use the 1003, but I think what you'll find is that you're going to bounce back and forth. For example, on page 1 of the 1003, when you get to the bottom of that 1003, it's going to give you a hyperlink to take you to the employment page to enter that employment information, which is right up here in one of the folders. When you get to page 2, it's going to give you a hyperlink to add in the liabilities, to add in the assets, which are right here. So when you're doing the 1003 version, you seem to, I feel, bounce back and forth more than is necessary, and that for that reason, I do suggest these. Try them out. You know, I'm a 30-year mortgage professional, so as you can imagine, I've completed my share of 1003s in my day, and I honestly thought I was going to like this version better. Turns out, I like this. It makes sense. It flows nicely for me. Now, remember, if you've converted this from a lead, anything that you did on the lead side will come over with the loan, and there will be no loss of data. Let's update that interest rate. I don't think we have a 99% interest rate. That's just crazy. All right. Use your drop downs to select the appropriate answers to some of these questions, in particular here with the subject property. It makes a difference. When it comes to, oh, come on, it's taking its good old sweet time catching up to me. When you're entering hazard and real estate information to calculate the monthly payment for your PITI calculation, which is right down here, you can enter a factor, and the system will calculate that and populate it for you. If you happen to know what that monthly value would be, leave the factor out and enter whatever the monthly factor is. Either way, up to you. Now, when it comes to mortgage insurance, the system is going to calculate that for you and populate it here, so you should never lock the box and enter your own value. When you use these lock boxes, you're locking out LendingQB from making the calculated value, so try to resist doing that. Let the system calculate that value, and it will populate it correctly for you. The rest of the information on this page is pretty self-explanatory. Now, if you want to know what the debt ratio would be in advance of running the Price My Loan engine, because the Price My Loan engine is what's going to make the calculations and populate the values for your MI. Whether it is a conventional loan or a government, it will populate it. And if you wanted to figure out what your base and total loan amount is, or what your total monthly payment would be before you run the engine, you can put the factors in here. Just don't lock and put in the information. The reason for that is when you run that engine, you want it to be able to overwrite and populate what is correct, just in the event that you were wrong. Not saying that you would be, but just in case. That way it will be able to overwrite your values. If you start locking these boxes and putting in your own values, the system won't be able to auto-populate. The other financing page here, this is for subordinate financing. It would be used whether your new loan is a purchase or a refi, and it would still be used whether that second trust deed is a line or a loan. It's just a matter of the data that you enter. So my loan sample file here is a purchase. And because it's a purchase, this box is checked already for you. The system is intuitive. It knows if there is additional financing, it will be a new loan. So it's already checked for you. When it's a refinance, that box would be unchecked. If it's a loan, fully amortized loan, you'll enter your loan amount here. What's the interest rate? What's the term in months? And the system will calculate the. If it were a refinance, or excuse me, a HELOC rather than a loan, all you're going to do is check this box here to tell the system that it is a line of credit. My credit line is here, and this would become my draw amount at closing. HELOCs generally don't qualify by rate and term, but by a minimum payment. We had someone that just joined us. I'd like to ask you if you'd be kind enough to go ahead and mute your microphone, and that way you can unmute it if you do have a question. I don't want to take charge if I don't have to. All right, so that's line or a loan, purchase or a refi. It's just the boxes that you check and the data that you enter. This is the Price My Loan engine link. We're going to actually skip that for right now. We're going to jump down to the subject property. We're going to come back to that. Here on description, it's your property address. Enter in your property address. Just know that a valid zip code will get you the correct city, state, and county. I just really messed myself up there, didn't I? There it is. We'll get you the correct city, state, and county. Don't need to do anything else unless this is a condo or a PUD, and that's where you're going to enter the project name for your processor. The details page here, you may or may not enter any information in here. You're really only going to need to put anything here if it is a condo or a PUD, anything that you know, or if perhaps it is a streamline. If it's a purchase, just skip the details page. You won't need it. Similarly, this rental income page, it's really, really a very unique page inside the system, and it's used in two very specific circumstances. 2 to 4 unit owner occupied, or a non-owner occupied purchase where that property is already rented, and you can use those rents to qualify your buyer. So very specific circumstances. If your borrower has additional real estate owned, that's handled down here on the REO page. This is just for those specific circumstances. So let's say this was a 2 to 4 unit owner occupied. I would put in here the rents being collected on my other units. Here I would be able to lock this field and set it to whatever the vacancy factor is for that investor. And that would cause the system to calculate 75% of whatever value I entered here and give that amount directly as income to my borrower. Again, if your borrower has additional real estate owned that is income producing, that's here, not on this page. This is just for 2 to 4 unit owner occupied or non-owner occupied purchase. So more often than not, you're going to skip this page. In the next folder is the borrower information. Pretty straightforward. A couple of things here, though, that I do want to point out. Number one, let me make this a little bit smaller so you can see side by side. And I know it gets hard to see, but I want you to see the whole page. Now, the name of the borrower entered here. Any numbers, numeric values that you enter in the system, whether it be the social, the date of birth, phone numbers, just enter the correct digits and the system will populate that correctly for you. You don't need to do dashes, hashes, or slashes. Complete the borrower side in its entirety first, and then hit copy from borrower. Copies all of the shared data so that all you then need to do is come in and enter the co-borrower's personal information. Now, if you had non-married borrower, needed 2 separate 1003s, that's this link right here, add and swap borrower. Let's make this a little bit bigger. Add and swap borrower, co-borrower. So when I click there and I save my information, and let it think about it for a second, it's going to give me the ability to add in an additional 1003. In fact, I can add in an unlimited number of 1003s. There's no limit to what I can add, and just add new borrower. That's each time I come back to this page and click on add new borrower, that allows me to add in an additional 1003. Once the other 1003 is completed, they will be listed here, and I can use this drop down. In fact, let's go ahead and just do it. Add new borrower. And I can manage all of my borrowers here. The one thing I want you to keep in mind, though, when you are managing your borrowers here, because you can delete borrowers. I've worked in other systems where when you delete a borrower and you go, whoops, wish I hadn't done that, and then decide to close out of that application and not save your changes, go back in and there it is again. It's still there. Work here. That trick will not work inside of Lending QB because it is a live environment. Once you've deleted a co-borrower, it is gone. So now that I have Sam here in the system, I can go ahead and go between the 2 applications right here. Also, up here at the top, once I have completed both 1003s, the ratios that show up here will be taking into account all borrowers' income, liabilities, assets, everything, all up in here. Further managing these, I can go right back here to add and swap, and there's that other 1003. Add another 1003, or perhaps I can swap David and Donna on the same application right here, or delete the spouse. Pulled credit, and Donna's credit is not so good. So maybe you want to take her off the loan. I can delete her. I can even delete an entire application. Just like I said, be very careful about doing that because once you've deleted it, there is no getting it back. You need it back, it's re-enter that information, pure and simple. So be very careful there about managing those borrowers. Borrower employment, pretty straightforward. The first thing I do want to point out is this toolbar right here in the center of the page. This is where you will add additional employers. And I'm doing it as a shortcut. You will, of course, do it in its entirety. But once I save it, it adds it here in the center. I can move up or move down until they're in the correct ascending order. Up here at the top is always going to be my borrower's current employment. That's stagnant. This is where I'm adding in additional employments down here, or previous. Now, what if this employment was a second job? It wasn't a previous? Well, I can come here and put in the hire date. And right here, I think what a lot of us have done over the years, I know I did, typed in the word current to tell the underwriter that that was a current job. Problem is, Fannie Mae doesn't understand that verbiage. So in this particular field, you can't type anything but a numeric value. But all you have to do inside of LendingQB is click the box current employment. That populates the word present, which is Fannie and Freddie's verbiage, and you just get better findings. There is a co-borrower employment page. It works exactly the same way. Monthly income. There's a nice calculator here for you. So when you are first talking to that borrower, I click on base income, brings up a calculator. Maybe they're telling you that they make $35 an hour and they work 40 hours a week. The system will make the calculation, and you'll do the same for a co-borrower, if any. Once you hit OK, it populates that calculated value for you. Later, when you get the actual pay stubs, and you look at them and you're like, oh, they're not hourly at all, they're salaried. So you enter in the base salary. You tell the system, are they paid biweekly, 26 pay periods, or semi-monthly, 24? Whichever is correct, once you hit OK, that value again populates for you. Now, down here, other income. We all know what that means. Every one of us here knows what that means. Well, Fannie Mae hasn't a clue, but everybody else does. Fannie and Freddie don't know. So don't write your income in here. Once you've selected and told the system it's borrowers or co-borrowers income, make sure you are using the drop-down, because when you run your findings, the system will know exactly what you're talking about, and you'll get specific findings. It'll tell you specifically what to do and how to document that type of income. And when you have a husband and wife, and they're both retired, both earning multiple sources of retirement income, you can add in as many as you need. Just use the drop-down, and the system will know exactly what to do with it. It's pretty cool. I love that. Liabilities. Pretty straightforward. Now, there are about a half a dozen different places that you can actually pull credit inside the system. I've already pulled credit on this file. And you may have too. You very well may have already pulled the credit on the lead side. Remember what I said, when you convert that lead to a loan, that data will come over from the lead side, as will the report itself. Now here's another place that you could order the credit report just by clicking on Order Credit. Your credit agencies, your credit agency is right here at the very top of the list. Once you select that for the first time, it's going to default to that for you. Because this is your only credit agency, it is likely that your credentials have been built into the system and you won't need to enter those. Of course, you'll be saying order a new credit. And then you submit the credit request. When the credit comes back into the system, it's going to populate it into places inside the system. All open trade lines will populate here on the liability page for you automatically. You'll have a link right here where you can click on it and view the credit, and it'll save a copy of it inside of the eDoc folder. So you'll always have a copy of that credit report available to you and in a number of different places. And keep in mind, this looks different because this is my sample. Now, also on this page, I'm going to show you in a moment how you can link your mortgage liabilities to your schedule of real estate. So you can tell your processor and your underwriter which mortgages go with which property. They'll also be able to come in and show that a liability is going to be paid off, will be paid off. Just select that right here. If you have an investor that says, I don't care, I still want you to count it, you can come in here and add that back into the debt ratios. So you can do a couple of different things there. I'm going to skip the assets and jump down to the REO. Now on the REO page, you'll add in here's that toolbar again. So it's add all your properties in. You'll come in and you'll tell the system what type of rental it is, if it's a rental or retained. You'll enter in the market value, gross rent, taxes, insurance, maintenance costs that are not impounded. You will leave the mortgage amount and the payment amount blank. And you'll add in all properties. Once all properties are added in, you go back to the liability page. You highlight the first mortgage liability. Down here in the detail, you'll use this drop down to select the property it is associated with, and then hit this add balance and payment to REO. So now when your processor or underwriter is reviewing this loan file, on this page, they can clearly see that Homecomings Financial is associated with 555 Main Street. When they are on the REO page, they can also very clearly see that Homecomings is associated with this property. In addition, you've pushed the reported mortgage balance and payment amount from the credit report. So you don't need to go back and forth and try and remember the numbers and worry about transposing them or rounding them. They match 100%. Love that feature. Love it. Makes it very easy for you to convey this information to your processor. Now, also on the liability page, if you're ever doing a cash out refi for the sole purpose of debt consolidation, you can come into this page, this view, and click on that liability and do just what I showed you to do a moment ago, and that will be paid off. And save it and go to the next one and the next and the next. And that works just fine. And sometimes that might be the way that you want to do it. But if I'm doing a debt consolidation for with a lot of liabilities, that's 3 clicks of a button of the mouse for every single liability. I can do that much faster if I come up here and change the radio button to debt consolidation. Changes the view a little bit. I'll also want to set this, personally, I'd want to set it to calculate automatically. Now, this is a purchase transaction that I have set up, so the numbers are not going to be calculating correctly as they would with a refi, but I could just very easily come here and select those liabilities that will be paid off. Once I have selected the liabilities to be paid off, it takes them out of the debt ratio automatically. Down here, it will update to show what that borrower's monthly savings will be, taking into account the new liability. Also over here, it will show you a remaining cash out amount. So if your client is telling you, I want to pay off as much liability as possible, but I still want $10,000 cash out to do maybe a bathroom remodel or something like that, you can watch that. So it's a pretty cool feature. And then once you're ready, done, you can go back to the liability details if you want to. Your choice. So it's kind of a nice tool. Now on the assets, same toolbar. So when you are adding in additional assets, do make sure you use the drop-down to identify the type of asset that you're adding in. There are 2 assets that you would add in typically that are not going to be found on this drop-down. They're added in separately. The first, retirement. So if your borrower has retirement 401ks, IRAs, SEPs, and the like, that's right here, retirement funds. Whatever the vested, 70% or 65% of the vested, whatever that calculation is, enter that here. You also have on a purchase an earnest money deposit, a good faith deposit, however you want to call it. I can enter here who's holding that earnest money and then enter the amount. So those are your 2 assets that are not added down here. Every other asset, enter down here. REO page we've already looked at. Present housing expense. Now keep in mind, remember, if you've done this as a lead and most of this information is already completed on the lead side, it'd already be here. It'd just be a matter of double checking or verifying that you have your 1003 complete. What's their current housing? They're either paying rent or a mortgage. Enter whatever is appropriate. And that's the bulk of your 1003. Now, again, as I mentioned just a moment ago, if you had completed a lead first and then brought that information over and you're pretty sure that everything is there, can you just come and double check it on the 1003? Sure you can. Whatever information you put on those other pages up here will flow right here onto the 1003. And you want to make sure that you have everything. Now here's what I was talking about. Go to employment, save the information, and it takes me over to the employment page. And then just like an internet web browser, I hit back, go on to page 2. So you can double check it on the 1003 if you're more comfortable that way, but give these a chance. Try them out. You may just find you like them. Once your 1003 is done, the Price My Loan engine will probably come into play. Now, just as every borrower is different, your workflow for that loan may be a little different. The Price My Loan engine, there's really not a right time to run it or a wrong time to run it. It's just what works best for that borrower. I typically, when I'm showing it, and I envision that I would use it after I've completed my application. Because if I do my application first, before I click on Run Price My Loan, there's almost no data entry that I need to do at this point. But if your borrower wants some very specific information right away, you may choose to come here before you've completed the 1003. And that's okay too. Because if you start here in the Price My Loan engine and enter the data here, it will also update your application. So the information and the exchange of data goes back and forth between the two. Taking a minute to load. Let me give you a little bit more background and information on Price My Loan and the Quick Pricer in general. All of the products and programs that you have available to you, all of the guidelines for all of those products and programs, all of the pricing adjustments, all of that, that's all built into the system, into a language that the engine will understand. Wow, it's really taking its good old sweet time. Now, when the engine is running, it's comparing all of your data entry against all of those guidelines, all of the products and programs that are built into the system. So that, all right, let's try this. So that the system is then going to evaluate that information and give you products that the borrower qualifies for. True AUSI engine, just like Fannie is, just like Freddie is. I'm not really quite sure why it's sitting here stalling on me. The engine will, as I mentioned, evaluate all of your data entry and let you know if that borrower, or not if, what products and programs your borrower will qualify for. There you go. Boy, whew, that took a while. That's not the typical length of time it's going to take to do this. But bottom line, now that you have this tool, this Price My Loan engine tool available to you, basically accuracy counts. If you are mindful of your data entry, and you've calculated your income wisely, and you then run the engine, you will know on day one that you have a fundable loan or not. You don't need to wait for that loan to get into underwriting. The system's going to tell you. This is much, much more powerful, really, than DO, than LP. Because when you run the DO or LP engines, Those are the guidelines it's evaluating, just their own. The Price My Loan engine has all those guidelines built in, plus your investors' guidelines, overlays, plus overlays that your company may have. So it's capturing all of that data. As you can see from the data that I've already entered, everything is already here. Again, if I had decided to come here and run the Price My Loan engine first, I could do that. And anything that I entered here would populate back onto the application. Now, one little difference. With the Quick Pricer, you're doing a very limited data set. There's only one tab. And the information that you're entering for the Quick Pricer is really nothing more than you would need to look at a rate sheet. Same data. But now you have a full-blown loan application. So there are now two tabs. Remember a moment or two ago I told you that there's about half a dozen different places that you could pull credit? Here's another one. So right now it's saying use credit report on file because the system knows I've already pulled credit. It can see that the credit is there. But I could just as easily have ordered credit right here. You also have the opportunity and the option of running the Price My Loan engine without a credit report by entering the credit report information manually, knowing what the scores are and if there's any derogatory information. It's a tool. You can do it. Just know this, and make sure that your borrower is aware of this. Because the Price My Loan engine acts just like any other AUS underwriting engine, it reviews the credit report line by line and evaluates it just like an AUS would do. If you opt to run the Price My Loan engine by entering that credit manually and then later pull a credit and rerun it, and if their scores were wrong or they, I don't know, failed to mention the 3 late payments on their mortgage they had last year, the results that you get could be vastly different. So just make sure everybody's aware of that. But it's an option. You just click here and then enter credit. Now, before you run the Price My Loan engine, you can also run DU, DLP, total scorecard, whatever is appropriate for that transaction. Once you click and select whichever GSE you're going to run, you'll enter in your credentials and it'll push that information over to Fannie or Freddie, whichever is appropriate, or FHA total scorecard. Enter in your credentials and hit submit. Once you hit submit, you're going to be out in that engine and you're going to be running that engine, that Fannie or Freddie engine, just like you do now. There's no difference. When you've completed that and you bring the information back into the system, AUS response here will automatically update to whatever you did get. Now, what about that borrower that we didn't pull credit on? You manually entered credit. Well, if you manually enter credit, you can't run one of the GSEs. You can't run Fannie or Freddie. You have to have a credit report for those engines. So when you do that, you do have to come here and make an assumption based on your experience. What would you, if I were going to run DU, what would I expect to get? Or if I were to run LP, what would I expect my results to be? So just make an assumption here. When you are running a government loan through the engine, there is no reason to change these factors. The system, as I mentioned earlier, is going to calculate the MI for you, government or conventional. Now, right now, I have this listed as a 20% down payment, and conventional MI is grayed out. The system knows I don't need it. I'm going to come back and show you what happens when I change that down payment, but I'm going to run the engine right now. I'm going to deselect a few of these. I don't need all of these options, and I'm really just going to go with a 15 and a 30, well, let's do it, 30-year and 7/1 ARM, conventional. And I hit price. Just as the Quick Pricer did, where it evaluated my data entry against all of the products and programs and all those guidelines, it's doing the same thing now, and then some. It's looking at all of the credit report and everything. It's looking at GFE fee services, and it's matching up appropriate fees. It's doing a whole host of evaluating. Here's what I am eligible for, and down here I can select and see what I am ineligible for and why. So this one here with this high balance with Sunwave, no, I don't have a high balance loan amount, but it's telling me I need a minimum 700 FICO. I know this borrower had a previous bankruptcy, so that my borrower has issues. I've got all rate options have high cost exceeding minimum YSP. So I've got some, here's another one, FICO 700. So I've got some issues with this borrower, but I do have my 30-year fixed. Now, in the results, you have similar information to what you had with the Quick Pricer. I've got the rates that I can quote, my pricing, calculated P&I. Now I have a little bit more. I have a debt ratio because now I've got a full application including income entered. It's calculating an APR. Remember, a few moments ago I mentioned one of the things the engine does, the full-blown engine, the Price My Loan engine, looks at a GFE fee service that was created by your administrators. And that GFE fee service enables the system to calculate an APR. It's giving me QM results that are green checks or a red X. Now, if I had a red X here, that doesn't necessarily mean that the borrower is completely ineligible. What if I had run the DU, I happen to prove eligible, my debt ratio knowingly was over 45% or 43%, maybe it was 45, X. But if I have that DU, that could still be okay. So look at the reasons for the QM. Over here, the costs. The costs that were used to calculate that APR. When I click on that hyperlink, there are the costs. And then I have my products. A couple of other tools that are here for you. I completely bypassed these, so let's circle back and talk about them. The plus sign, what does that mean? Well, the Price My Loan engine is designed to give you best X. It's just going to give you best pricing. But you may know that there's something quirky about Provident isn't going to be my best option. Well, I can click on the plus sign and that will give me other investor options. I'm also going to be able to take this to SunTrust. It's just my pricing is going to be a little bit different. So I can always expand these and get a better idea of the pricing. Pinning, what does that mean? Well, borrowers don't always know what the best option is. Some borrowers think they know, but don't really. Some just want to see what their options are. What do I mean by that? Well, some borrowers don't know whether a 30-year fixed or a 15-year fixed would be their better option. Is putting 10% down or 15% the better option? Is 20 versus 15? 7-1 ARM versus a 10-1? I can pin and create a comparison report. So I'm going to randomly select two pricings, and I'm going to pin these so that they would be part of my comparison report. Compare two pinned results. I click that button, that large button there, and it will create a comparison report that I can now provide to my borrower to help them make an informed decision. It's got up here your name, your NMLS number, etc. If you haven't already, you'll be given your logins shortly. Just like any other login that you ever get for any other program, you really should not be sharing those with anybody. But in here, in LendingQB, it's even more important that you do not. Because when your profile was created, it assigned you to your branch, your NMLS number was listed, your state license numbers were listed, so that when you originate a loan file, your name is automatically populated to that 1003 through no action on your part. So you want to be sure that you're keeping that close to your vest, so that when you do create a comparison report like this, the information that's up here, this is your name, your NMLS number, etc. Here are the two products that I pinned. And one thing to note, inside of LendingQB, I can see who the end investor is. Once you've sent this report outside of LendingQB, emailed it to your borrower, they don't see that information. They just see the product, the rest of the product name. So that's hidden. So you're not giving that information out. And you have here side-by-side comparison. Now these were the same basic loans except for the interest rate. And that's where it starts to change. I've got my PITI showing the difference in that. Closing costs. Now again, this is a hyperlink inside of the system, but when you send this outside the system to your borrower, that is not a hyperlink, it's just an amount. You can opt to send that detail, which would be right here, or not, and I'll show you how to do that in a moment. Also down here, horizon, 60 months. That's a default in the system, and that's there to tell the borrower, show the borrower, what does this loan look like in 5 years? How much principal have you paid? What is the remaining balance? Now, that 5-year is just a default. That's right here. So if you're talking to a borrower and they tell you, I know like clockwork, I'm transferred every 3 years, you can change that to 36. Maybe 120 is more appropriate before you run the engine, and then that would be what would be displayed here, would be those numbers. So you have options. When you've completed that application, let's hope you put in their email address. It's on the borrower info page. And all you have to do is check the box to send it to them. You can put a little message in there to them, a little love note to the borrower, so I call it, or not. It's up to you. Include breakdown of estimated closing costs. By default, they are not sent. If you want that breakdown to be sent, that page 2, just check the box here before hitting send, and that will send that report to that borrower as an attachment to the email specified. Now let me show you, it's really a cool tool. Email's been sent, and this is how fast it happens. There's my email. I already got it. So it happens very, very quickly. Let me close that. Let me show you a couple of other things. What if this borrower says, you know, I don't know if I want to give up all my assets. What if I only put 15% down? So I can change my down payment percentage here. And when I do that and change that to 15%, I'm on. It's going to open up this field right here for the MI, so I can use that. I'm going to go with borrower paid. It also grayed out my previous results because they're no longer in effect. I've changed the terms. But my pinned products have stayed. So now I can rerun the engine under the new terms. So I can then choose 2 more products, the same interest rates, so I can show them, here's what these 2 interest rates look like with 20% down, and here's what they look like with 15% down, including MI. Pretty powerful tool. Now, I've got some red, but that won't stop me from pinning. It's just expired rates. You may want to wait until they're not expired. It's up to you. Now, here I have a red X from my QM, but I know it's not debt ratio. I'm at 40% with my debt ratio. My guess is it's costs. I'm over the 3%. So now I have 4 pinned results. Click on that button, and I have a report that shows 4 products. Now, you can pin as few as 2 and as many as 20 to compare. Not really sure who's going to do 20 to compare, but you can do it. That's the bottom line. You can if you want to, but only 3 will show per page. So I have here my 30-year at 20% down, and here's the first one at 15. So here I'm same interest rate, but without MI and with MI, so that that borrower can then make an informed decision. Here's the other product. Now, if you ever create a report and you go, gosh, I don't know why I even selected this one, you can discard that PIN. You don't have to go back and reinvent the wheel. You don't have to recreate that report. You can just discard that PIN right on the fly before sending the report to the borrower. So pretty powerful tool, I think. That is the Price My Loan engine and the comparison report. Now, you may send that comparison report off to the borrower, and a day or two later, they call you and say, okay, we're ready to go. We know what product we want and what pricing we want. And you say, great. So you will come back in and rerun the engine. And what you must do before disclosures are sent out, before anybody creates disclosures inside the system, it's critical that that loan be registered. Now, registered in the system only means this is the product that the borrower has selected. Is that written? They can selection made. You've got to select the product and the pricing. It's simply that I've been talking about populate onto that loan file, which means your disclosures will be accurate. If it is requiring MI, it populates all those MI factors onto the loan file. If it were an ARM that you were selecting, the caps, margin, index, floor rate, all of that would populate correctly and accurately onto the loan file. So it's critical to the accuracy of your disclosures that you register a loan before you send out disclosures. Can you lock it? Yes. The net effect is going to be the same. The parameters of the loan will populate onto that loan file. So one of the two must happen before disclosures can go outside the system. I'm going to show you how to register. The steps to register, the steps to request a lock, exactly the same. So I'm going to click on the word register next to the pricing and program that I want. And in the next page, it's going to allow me to review and confirm what I am registering or requesting a lock for. If this were a lock, there would be a little bit more information up here. It would give you the lock expiration date, it would give you the pricing and a few other pieces of information. If you needed to make adjustments, close that window, rerun pricing, and then start again. So this is what I'm looking for. I'm not going to send any of this information to any of these people. Maybe I want it to be emailed to myself as the loan officer. I'll just send it to myself. My underwriter really doesn't need it. And then I hit confirm. That is setting all the parameters of that loan, including GFE fees, basic GFE fees, onto that loan file. And it takes a moment. I also will have here a pre-qual cert. Now that pre-qual cert, according to your guidelines, and check with your manager to see what your company guidelines are, this may be able to be sent outside the system to your borrower so that they could present that to a real estate agent, perhaps, to show that they have been pre-qualified by a loan officer. And it will show them the basic information that they qualify for. Do notice here that I have a little asterisk, has been modified by the user. Remember, I didn't run DU. I didn't actually run DU, I made an assumption. Had I truly run DU and received my approve eligible, that asterisk wouldn't be there, nor would that statement. So just keep that in mind when you do a manual credit score and manually make an assumption. Shows that they're pre-qualified, and it gives you down here a list of probable items that you will need to collect from the borrower. You can print this off and give it to them and use this as a basic checklist for them to follow. But that loan is now registered and ready for disclosures. Now, as I mentioned, the GFE, and we're just about out of time. We've got about 10 minutes left. Now, on the GFE, the parameters of the loan that I selected populated it. Again, if it was an ARM, all my caps would be populated here already. My questions here would be answered. As it is, this information for 1 through 4 has populated based on what I did. It's populated the dates based on a float. If I had locked this, 1 through 4 would have been updated with the lock dates and information that's necessary. Basic fees can then be added in. So you can see here some of this basic information. Basic fees have been populated here. Enter what is, maybe if you have a quote. Otherwise, the loan can go to the processor responsible for doing disclosures. Once you are ready for your processor to begin working on this loan file, you're going to come into the status folder, status general, and you're going to put a date here in processing. T for today. Just hit T for today. Once you save this and that status updates, a few things are going to happen. The processor will be notified that there is that loan in their pipeline to begin working on, and you will be locked out. You can no longer make changes to the loan file. You can go back into a loan file and run the Price My Loan engine. You can run that engine as many times as you want up until the point that you request a rate lock. Once you've requested a rate lock, now you're locked out of that as well. But that loan will be in your pipeline. You'll be able to follow its progress through all these different statuses in the life cycle of a loan. Each time that the loan moves from one status to the next. So when my processor gets ready to and submits this to underwriting and puts a date here and submitted, you're going to receive an email. You'll know when that happens. And it'll change on your pipeline in real time. When the underwriter picks up that loan to begin working on it, they'll put a date here in underwriting. You'll know that an underwriter's working on it. When it's approved, and so on. So you get an email each time this loan moves from one status to the next. You'll be able to follow what's this current status. But again, once you put a date here in the processing, you're locked out. You can no longer make changes to that loan file. That's a quick overview of how you will be using the system. Anybody have any questions at this point in time? Okay. Since we do have a few minutes left, there's one other thing that I do want to show you inside of the status folder, and that's this agents page. Now, up here at the top of the page, this will be where your name will automatically populate based on your profile. Remember how I had said that your profile, the system knows who you are when you originate that loan. You will be automatically assigned to this. You'll be able to come in and see who's assigned to work on your loan file. Again, you will get an email notifying you, but if you want or needed to look something up, it's right here on the agents page. At the bottom of the page, this is everybody else. And you'll want to be sure, remember what I said in the beginning, that this is an end-to-end solution. So one of the things you want to do is enter what you know when you know it. And it helps you now and it helps you later. So if You're working on a purchase, and you know that information in there. If you don't, that's going to delay your processor. They're going to have to stop. They're going to have to dig around in the file and the documentation to see if they can find that information or email you, rather than going in and hitting edit, title, pick from contacts, check the database. Does that contact exist? Go to contact entries. And I can look for that contact a lot of different ways. I can resort by the company name alphabetically in an ascending or descending order. I can also come in here and type in and search for Fidelity. There's a bunch of Fidelities in here, and I come here and go, oh, yeah, well, here it is. It's Debbie. Awesome, she's already in there. I hit select, and it populates the information for me. So when, as the processor, they come in and pick up this loan file, they'll know exactly who the title officer is and who to contact to get information. So enter what you know when you know it. You know, if you know the listing agent, the selling agent, add them. Add them in. Add people.
Tina?
Yes.
On the contact list, is that system-wide or is that limited to our own personal contacts, or is it system-wide?
That is an excellent question. It is system-wide. So let me offer you this, because I know as a loan officer, you don't want the entire world to know who your agents are. I get that. Now, what I would do if I were a loan officer, and I come in, I'm going to add in my listing agent, and I come in here to the contact entry. And if I see them, great. It's Coldwell Banker, let's say. They would, or D.R. Horton, okay? D.R. Horton is in here, but there's no contact name, no agent's name, no agent's email address. So I would keep my information complete. I would want to see all of the information here, all of the address information, but I would not save to the database. I would not click and add to contacts that included the contact name, the specific name. So I would come in, I would put in the company name, address, the company direct line number, and I would add that to the contact database. Then I would add in my agent's name, my agent's email, and my agent's direct line number. So that way the contact's there, but your personal contact is not. I know that's something that a lot of people, they don't want that visible to everybody. And another loan officer would not be able to come in to your loan and only accessible to you, to your processor. So that's how I would handle that. Great question. Any other questions? All right. I appreciate everybody's time this morning. I would immediately, upon receiving your credentials, go into the system, and do have a lot of support in your offices, I'm sure, since your company's been using the system for quite some time, so your processor will undoubtedly be able to give you additional information if you have forgotten. Same thing with a branch manager or your sales manager. They can certainly help you. You also have help up here. There's instant support. This is an IM between yourself and someone here in my support team. You'll be able to type in your question and hit send, and they get back to you rather quickly. So you just type in your question and hit send, and they'll be able to advise you, maybe jar your memory. Any last questions?
Okay, thank you, Tina.
Awesome, guys. Thank you so much. Good luck to all of you, and let us know if there's anything else we can do for you. Have a good day.
All right, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.